Have you ever gotten up in the morning and you just felt like you wanted to stay in bed? Or maybe gotten through half of your day, then gotten through half of your day and you just feel you have nothing left in you to continue on going? This happens to so many of us and so often, especially as time goes on, because sometimes we're not being nutritious enough to our bodies or getting the right sleep and so many other things. So welcome today to Let's Get Real. We're going to be talking about this and a lot of other details today, and we have a wonderful guest that's going to be leading this conversation. So remember that you love us, like us, and share us so that if there's something here that you know somebody else might see or is going to get use out of this information, pass it on to them. That's what we're all about. My name is Glenda Kroll, and thank you for joining us today. And I have beside me the lovely
Nicole Harvick. Always glad to be here. Love my Wednesdays. Very exciting. Not only do I get to connect, but the guests that we bring on, I always learn something. And I'm one of those people that knows that until the day I leave this earth, I want to be learning. I look back at what I thought I knew and what I know now, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much more that I know, which means there's so much that I don't know that I've got to find out. But one of the things that's fun is when we have a guest like this, that I just learned so much. So I'm really excited to have this gal on. I met her in the Change Book Club, and there's a lot of knowledge in that group, and she was among the knowledge. And her background is in education. And this is something that you and I, Glenda, are both going to relate to is it includes working as a special needs and disability advisor with the focus on social, emotional, and mental health. And both of those are dear to our hearts. So this is going to be a wonderful, wonderful interview. She is now a stress and well-being coach who's also a Reiki Master, and that has played a big part in my life as well. So welcome to the stage, Annie Mood. Let's bring her up. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for such a lovely welcome.
Well, I'm so glad you're here because I really feel that this is going to be such a great interview today that our audience is really going to learn from you. Not just about disabilities, but stress is something that people are facing more and more each day. So I think it's really important to bring that knowledge and awareness out and talk about it, because how are we going to learn about things if we don't talk about it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and we're excited to have you sharing what you have, what you teach. And what we teach and what we learn is how we can affect other people's lives in a very positive way. So welcome aboard to Let's Get Real, and let's get going to figure out what's happening. So I hear that you are a Reiki master and you're a stress and well-being coach, but life didn't start out that way. What
No.
got you into this? So let's talk about how you began down this journey.
I began very early in life. I come from a spiritual family, and I think that was just embedded in me. But when I think about astrology and being an Aquarian, I think it was more the innovative side of me that really got into using different modalities to support not just people, but children and their education and them understanding themselves. So it all came about because I really struggled with depression. That's why I actually started. And I knew, and I moved to a new country. And I knew that in order for me to make it in this new country, I would really need to work on my challenges, on my lack of confidence, on my lack of self-worth. I came from a country where we were segregated. I'd never spoken to a white person before I left South Africa, and I left at the age of 20, almost 21. So there was a lot of limiting beliefs. We all have limiting beliefs, but these were my limiting beliefs. And I think I just had this spark in me that wanted more. And in order to have more, I had to release, I had to let go of a lot of limiting beliefs. I just knew that from early on.
And that's so interesting because, I at age 20, I didn't have an awareness like that, I guess. For me, I would wake up. I was always a very bubbly and, fun. I loved life. But where do you think that awareness comes from? Was it from family, or do you think friends, or were you just born with that awareness inside of you?
I think life has given me some opportunities to become more aware of myself. I was always aware of my emotions, but I was never aware of my energy. And I think
Mm.
a lot of people, we are only, I mean, we're learning that we are energy beings first. So as much as you can manage your emotions, but I had to learn how to manage my emotions. My energy was in depression. So
Mm.
what I learned was that when your energy is at a certain frequency, then you're going to attract that frequency in many forms, in relationships, in your job, in mainly relationships, but also what you can achieve for yourself, right? So one of the things I had to learn was all about energy. And I started that with Reiki healing. I remember sitting in the hospital, when I was 6 months pregnant with my daughter. And I was, I don't know why I had bleeding at the time. There was no real reason for it, but they kept me in the hospital. And I was 27 years old, and I was reading a book about Reiki. And the nurse came and sat next to me, and she's like, "You're reading this?" I said, "Yes." She's like, "How old are you?" I said, 27. She's like, "Oh, wow." And walked away. So for me, it was natural.
Mm.
But I think for other people, it didn't come across that way. Um, yeah. So I think it was just an awareness, and plus life experiences started to bring those awarenesses for me.
I think when you also tap into having that, what I noticed as a young child, I had a mother who seemed to be somewhat a negative person. And at a young age, I sort of saw, and I don't even know where some of my things came from, but I saw that her negativity actually brought on more negativity, and which in my own mind thought, young kid thinking to herself, geez, she's always complaining about nothing's going her way, but it seems to be that it keeps on happening. And then I started thinking, well, if I could be happy, then maybe this won't happen to me. Maybe, like it was this little girl in me that came from it. So it's what seems to be, like I believe that it attracts one another. So happening from being aware, and the awareness comes in different forms, right? So with your family, at a young age, were you a type of child that was able to verbalize and speak what you wanted to speak, or were you more or less held down to, the old ways of, children should be seen but not heard type of things?
That's a really good question, and a good choice of words, because I went through a very challenging experience at the age of 4, where there was rioting going on in South Africa. And I write about this in the book. Um, and it was a very, very, very significant moment for me, because, and little did I know, or my family would have known, that that would be a significant moment. But my neighbors came knocking on the door saying they're coming to take our house. I was 4 years old, and you could see like fire in the background, and just the fear that came from just finding out in such a way, where the neighbor is banging on the door and saying, right, they're coming to take our houses. We need to protect our homes. At the age of 4, I went into panic, and my mom could not even stop me from shaking. Up till this day, she says, I thought I was going to lose you that night.
Oh,
But she and my dad put my brother and I in a car to try and show us that everything is going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. And with all good intentions, the person that they took us to was a policeman. And again, at the age of 4, police, is
Scary.
not reassuring for a 4-year-old. And I can
Yeah.
still picture the army trucks on the border again. So all of that became a huge moment for me that I think now as an adult, I know wired my brain, and I became afraid of the world. I became afraid of everyone and everything. And it manifested itself, especially in school. I now, having worked with children with selective mute, now I understand that I was a selective mute and I
Mm.
couldn't speak. So I would whisper to my teachers and I would cry, even if they just asked me a simple question like, hello, that's, how are you? Or,
Mm.
so that made me not be able to speak. And it wasn't in all situations. It's not, I could speak at home, but it was really in social situations when that I found it really difficult to speak. And I don't think my family even knows this. I don't think they
Wow.
know.
right.
But I didn't know until I started working with children with social emotional mental health. Yeah.
Did it have to do with authority figure, what you saw as an authority figure?
Still does today. Up
Okay.
to today, authority figures, people I perceive as authority figures, not everyone, right? So for some reason, my brain would perceive certain things, and usually it's teachers, and I'm a teacher, so I'm actually afraid of head teachers. How's that for being a teacher?
Oh my gosh, that's quite a little journey you're on there.
Well,
Hence
maybe
my
it was a
exit
way of
strategy.
maybe it's your way of getting through that stress and really unraveling it, what it does to you, right?
Yeah.
And making sure that other children don't have that same fear that you have.
Exactly. And when I worked with children, I understood where they were coming from. So that turned out to be a blessing in my profession. It turned out to be a blessing with supporting my child. Um, and because there was something that I knew that others couldn't see. There was something that I understood. I actually became their voice. And in my last job, one of my roles was pupil voice. And I asked my leadership team, why have you chosen me for pupil voice? They said, because there's something that you know. And it's because of my own experience.
Wow.
Beautiful. And what a powerful um, area of your life to be able to be the voice for others. And I understand that's such an important matter in anybody's life. Um, I understand that you also you work with children with autism.
Yes, yes, I do.
And, how did you get into that field? Because working with children who are mentally healthy and everything which is a huge thing all onto its own. And then taking on the side of working with children with autism, which is so different.
Yes, it is very different, but autism came to me. I birthed autism.
Oh,
Okay,
So
so
I
yeah.
had to learn. I had to learn. And I didn't know for the first 12 years of her life that I was raising a child with autism
Oh,
because girls are, present differently to males.
yes.
And the diagnosis was very much geared for male autism. I think it's definitely, there's more awareness now. But females still love to socialize. Female autistics still love to socialize, and they want to be a part of girl group. So it's different from male autism, and girls do get diagnosed later in life. And I'm hoping that would change. I think that would change over time. It will change.
So what is the difference between male and female autism in terms of paying attention or speaking or having the abilities to do certain activities? What do you look for in a 12-year-old versus a male?
Well, one of the differences is the socialization.
Mhm.
Girls do want to socialize. They, whereas boys are quite happy. Not all. Look, this is not a blanket rule, right?
Yeah,
Everyone's different. And now there's different profiles of autism as
yeah,
well. And my daughter was diagnosed with a rare form of autism called pathological demand avoidance. And it's only diagnosed in a few countries. It's still very rare. And at the time, I had no idea what that was. But she fit the profile. And that's how I knew that she had PDA. We call it PDA for short. Um, and for females, it's it's like I was thinking about this today, and how you identify it is there are two different processes, right? Processing systems, rather. And the best analogy I can give you is working with a MacBook and working with Windows, right?
Mhm.
They're different, but they do the same thing, but they process differently, right? And they never get. Imagine those two talking to each other. One's not going to understand the other, right?
Right.
That's how it is. Like, we are neurotypicals, and we have neurodivergent. And neurodivergent doesn't only necessarily mean autism. There's dyslexia, dyspraxia, there's ADHD, and so on. So I think, but if we go back to your question, which is the differences, boys like to be enjoy their time on their own, whereas
Mm.
girls want to be a bit more social. There are other differences, but those are if I was to just give you one or two, that would be it.
Yeah.
and
And how old is your daughter today?
19.
19. Okay.
so we know that autism comes in many different forms, and
Yeah.
there's many different types of autism. I experience autism. I've lived through my life with autism because I have two brothers with Fragile X syndrome, which is a form of autism. So for the past 65 years, I've grown up with seeing my life through the eyes since I was the youngest of my siblings. I looked at the world very differently. As also the fact that when you look at through life, you can see the struggles of what they go through as just a regular life. It's a very different world when you're looking through it with somebody with autism. But and I've had a many times involvement with children with Down syndrome and so forth. So part of the autistic world is, there also is different levels. So, some, as we say, in the Fragile X syndrome world where I have come from, girls are the ones that are usually carriers and are very slightly affected, where males are always, there's 50% of the chance that they're actually affected, and it affects them on all different levels emotionally. But there's high achievers, and there's just, in autism, you can find finding that key ingredient where they flourish, whether it maybe it's some form of art or music or something like that, and all of a sudden they just take off. And it's wonderful seeing somebody's when they hit that magic moment in life and become that incredible human being. That is, it's like they just become sparkling amazement of people, so it's a wonderful thing to see it. But it's different as a mom to experience it
Yeah.
and to go through, and finding ways of connecting up with your child. So when you were going through this time, did you realize earlier in her life that something was a little off or something didn't seem right?
Not early on, because with this particular autism, one of the key signs is that as children, as babies, they're quite passive. So just absorbing the world around them. So there's no behavior challenges. But in it, but it was later on. It was actually when she started school, the first day she started school. And although she had been in nursery for, since she was a baby, it didn't really present itself. Well, perhaps we didn't notice the signs at that point. But on the first day of school, that's when I noticed it, when she just I went to pick her up, stuck a thumb in her mouth and
Oh,
refused to move. But little did I know that was anxiety, high levels of anxiety, that was demand avoidance. And as time went on, she went through whole primary school, without any autism support, because we just didn't know. But as time went on, I started to learn, and honestly, I was really. This is where I feel like my spirituality comes in, because I was guided to a place in the National Autistic Society where it was the first time I saw the traits of PDA. And when I saw the traits, I was like, okay, boom, 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 boom. Yes, every single thing was yes. And it was that moment that I knew what autism she had. But I had to learn, I had to relearn everything, because it's rooted in high levels of anxiety. It's rooted in demand avoidance, everyday demand avoidance, which is even the simplest things. So it's perceived demand avoidance, as well as the brain is hardwired to be in control all the time. And so I had to relearn how to parent, because we were not getting anywhere. I was not getting anywhere prior to that.
oh man, that had to be so frustrating and scary, though, as a mom, to finally realize that. And then how do you do these shifts into parenting? And I'm just curious, is that what brought you into stress coaching for people?
I have always been interested in emotions. As a class teacher, I did not agree with the reward and consequence program. I
Mm.
didn't believe in right, give a child a something because they've done something well. I didn't want to program children in that way, because I knew as a teacher I had a huge responsibility on my shoulders. And again, going back to my own past, my own childhood, rather, I knew what I would have liked to have had. And so I started I used to do EFT, emotional freedom technique,
Love it.
for myself. And that was to support myself with my limiting beliefs. And I always had classes with challenging behavior. I think they recognized that quite early on in my teaching career. They had this one particular class that was so challenging. They were stealing from me. They were,
Oh,
they could not, and they were only 9 years old. They could not integrate with each other. They could not interact with each other. There was no learning going on. So I approached a resilience coach at the time who I was working with, and I said, look, do you have any ideas? And he said, yes. Why don't we try silent tapping? Okay.
Oh,
And I, being the Aquarian innovative I am, I said, yes, let's go for it. And and that morning I started tapping with the class, and it felt like they were all over, bouncing all over the walls. And now I realize it was the energy in the classroom was synchronizing itself, was starting to calibrate. But it, like, every 2 minutes, or I would stop teaching, and I would start tapping, and I stop teaching, start tapping. And that day, when after I picked them up from lunch, it was the first time they all just lined up quietly, ready to come into class. And I was just shocked. I was
wow.
like, these kids, it take me 5 minutes to get them into the classroom. And at that moment, I knew I found something that was going to support me, that was going to support the children. And we started tapping. Tapping. I taught them. We did So my colleague came up with a process called Natilala, and it's like different phases that we take the children through to support them with their learning, with their understanding of what of who they want to be in life, and they started to know. We taught them how to, or I taught them how to notice what their emotions are. And the minute they feel stressed, the minute they feel anxious, the minute they feel even excited and they need to calm themselves down, we just start tapping. Just start tapping. Yeah.
Annie, can I interrupt for a moment?
Yes.
Can you walk us through, because there's many people, I'm very aware of tapping, but there's a lot of people out there who are not aware of tapping. Could you walk us through a tapping session right now? And
Sure.
so other people can see, like if they have a child with autism or just a child who, never mind, doesn't have to be autism, just a high level or a high power child that maybe, a parent needs to calm down a little bit or anything. Can we go through a tapping session?
Because it works for everybody. Adults need it as well. We do.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I've been doing this for the past 15 years now. So yeah,
Amazing.
absolutely. I'm going to go. Okay. So there's two types. Okay. You can tap with words, but that's going further into trauma and helping with limiting beliefs. But with the children, we just tap in silence. And basically I say to the children, we're switching on the DS, we're powering up. Okay, so we tap on the little finger, just on the blade of the hand, and just in the middle of that. And you can just tap gently, about 7 times if you wanted to. And then we move on to the corner of the eyebrow, which is the next part. And then we move on to the side of the eye, and you can tap on either side. It's not a problem. If people are watching, join in. And I'd like you to notice how you feel at the end of it. Notice what your emotions are right now. And then at the end, I want you to notice how you feel. And then we can tap under the eye. And then under the nose. And under the lip. And then just on the collarbone, there's a little hollow there. That is great. When you tap on that, you're improving your immune system. So that is a great place to tap. And then under the arm, just slightly under the arm. Yeah, perfect. And then the next point is on the top of the head. Let me just take a nice deep breath in and out.
Wonderful.
And you know what I
feel
love
the energy? Sorry.
There's no pharmaceuticals involved.
No pharmaceuticals involved.
Just you and your tapping.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can tap at any point. You can get it wrong because there is no wrong. You can get it right. Now, generally, if I'm in traffic or I'm stressed, I'll just tap on my chest. And I tap. You can tap with the children. Sometimes children don't want to tap when their anxiety or their stress or their anger emotions are really high. That's fine. Don't force them to, because then they're going to, create this aversion to tapping. Always tap before it. I like to use it as a preventative measure. And if ever you feel, okay, what were the tapping points? This is how I teach the children. We start, it's like a question mark. You go all the way around, come down to the nose, and then a dot.
Oh, I love that.
That's great.
Love that.
Wow.
But can you feel the energy when we stop?
Oh.
That everything was dead silent, right? That's because our energy synchronized it, and recalibrated.
Wow.
Now imagine doing that in a whole room before you have a meeting, before you teach, before anything can, but you have many people in the whole room just doing that for a few minutes.
I'm curious, did you have any parents question when their kids came home and started doing that? What in the world?
Single parent questioned me. Not a single. In fact, when we went on school trips, the parents will just fall in line and go, just fall in line. I'm like, where's my pioneers? The children went home and taught their parents. And yeah. And they taught each other. They taught other classes as well. So it's a beautiful way to get a ripple effect to help us to manage our stress. So coming back to your question, is it because of my daughter? No, it was because of me. And I've been asked that question many times, but it was something that I felt I needed to get through a school day. And I wanted to impart something with children, to the next generation. And that's how it came about. That's how, Stress and Wellbeing came about.
Well, that's probably one of the most important things that we have to learn in our life, of ways of how we can control ourselves, and we don't have to pop pills or anything like that.
Right. Our body is so brilliant, and it can just, there's so many ways, but it's not taught here, in the US. We're very much prescribing instead of teaching what we can do with our body. We're just tapping our meridians. It's just, they should teach it in school, but I don't think they would ever do that here.
No, they would.
You think so?
I have been in contact with, I've been in contact with other EFT practitioners. It's up and coming. And actually, I learned from Americans about tapping, about EFT. And it is, I was the first, this is something I don't think I usually tell people, but I was the first teacher in the whole world to actually introduce tapping to the whole class. Because prior to that, it was introduced with words to groups of children. I decided, let's try this in the classroom. Otherwise, I'm not going to survive this year.
To quit teaching.
I'll quit now. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I've seen most of the times where people talk sentences as they're tapping at a certain point, right? They say something and then they reinforce it in other ways, and they go through the whole gambit of, the areas of the body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I learned to do it with Ho'oponopono. That's how I started my tapping. The forgiveness, and it just, when you're dealing with the tapping and you're using those high vibrational words of love and forgiveness, and it was like, what is this miracle? I was just like, and it's free,
And
so it's
at our fingertips as well.
yeah. And whoever's listening, whoever needs to hear this for yourself, I mean, you can do it anywhere, in a car, walking, shopping, whatever. No one's going to pay attention. Just do it if you feel anxiety. And it just calms you right down.
No, sorry. I was just going to give a tip, because exam time is coming up. Children, always, you can do it at any time, even during your exams. All you have to do is just tap. You don't, not everyone needs to know what you're doing. Like you can tap under the table, just tap, 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 take a nice deep breath in and let it go and get started with your exams. I just wanted to share that because I know exam season is coming up.
Yeah, I'll share that with my daughter. She always gets stressed. She does it online, but she still gets stressed. I never even really thought to tell her, here, all you have to do is this, and study a little bit. That never hurts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Annie, what are your other tricks that you can use to help children to relax themselves? For me, it's walking or meditating, but there's ways of helping our children to become a little bit more relaxed. What are some of the other methods that you have?
Other methods I have, visualization is lovely, right? And I would definitely say yoga for the children. Look, children need to exert energy. So, and one of the challenges these days is that when they're not exerting that energy. When we were children, we were running outside. So we were fine, and we were getting vitamin D, and if you lived along the ocean, you were getting vitamin C. But these days, children are not getting the energy that their brain needs, which means they're not getting enough oxygen that the brain needs. So yes, walking outside, climbing, just being a child. It's so important to movement is so important. I would say a bedtime routine is also very, very, very important. So what time they eat, so that their bodies have enough time to digest, because if they are digesting whilst they're sleeping, they're not getting a really good night's sleep. So always establish a good sleep routine with the children. And one of the things that I did with the kids was visualization. Before we even started, we'd start in the morning, and lovely calming music would be playing. Whether it was with my daughter at home or whether it was in school, it's just calming music. The most important thing is setting yourself up with resilience first thing in the morning. Right? And we do that as adults. Well, not everybody, but I know I set myself up, and I do that through meditation. So meditation does for the children. A visualization doesn't only have to be at night. And if you have like an affirmation app, there's loads of affirmation apps now.
Mhm.
Tune is one of them. Right? Just playing in the background whilst the children will hear that. And so it's going into their subconscious, which is a better way than listening to it consciously, because you want this information to go into their subconscious, which creates that confidence in them from the inside out. So I would say, I used to say to the children, no sugary breakfasts in the morning. Try
Yes.
to, yeah, because when their sugar spikes and then reduces very quickly, then you get the sleeping in the classroom and tired in the mornings and the grumpiness and all kinds of things that you really don't want to deal with. So there are many different ways of encouraging children to be more active so that they improve their memory. But my favorite technique, I will always go back to it, is the tapping. And if you tap in the morning, you're setting them up for success for the day.
And I just want to remind people that are watching this, it doesn't matter whether your child has special needs or not. Any of these things are so important for your child's well-being. Having routines in the morning, having routines at night. I know I did that from the time my children were born, setting up of time of eating, time to have, and then reading book time. All of these things is, when you give your child that routine, they know what to expect. So there's no sudden changes, and it makes life so much easier for everybody. So it's really
Yeah.
important that all parents realize that what Annie is saying is just really good health for everybody. And going out and walking and getting that breath of fresh air is so important to our own well-being, male or adults alike. It doesn't matter where you are, children or not, or adults. They have proven that even people who get sunshine and fresh air each day, their chances of Alzheimer's is actually decreased significantly from that. So we all have to start moving and doing, because we're turning into a society where we're sitting far too much, we're getting connected to our phones far too much, and we're not allowing the time where children just need to go out and play.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree. And you talked about breath, and we are such shallow breathers.
Yeah.
We don't really embrace the fullness of filling up our lungs and then releasing. And when I walk on the beach, I'm very cognizant of that. And I'll go out there maybe kind of tired, but once you enhance that breathing, you feel so invigorated. And I also sun gaze, looking like right under the sun. And that is very healthy for you as well. So there's so many things we can do with to help ourselves, other than take a pill, which I'm not, some people have to, and I get that, but there's so many things that we've lost over the years that are, to me, it was common sense, but just you have to breathe to stay alive. And it's like, well, take one of those big ones. And then I always say, blow it out with sound if you can, because we've got stagnant air in the bottom. And
Yeah.
it's simple things like that. You'll be amazed how much better you feel mentally and physically.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I used to encourage the children to do tapping just before they went to sleep, because what you're doing is you're releasing all that. You talked about stuck energy. That's what tapping does. It releases the stuck energy and you start to have energy flow again. But doing that just before you go to sleep, you're letting go of all the days, stuck energy, all the days, stagnant energy, and just setting yourself up for a really good night's sleep. And we actually wrote a book in the end, where and it's called A New Approach for Calm Classrooms, Do the Natilala with Silent Tapping. And this was one of the things that the children actually wrote in the book, that they used to do their tapping just before they go to sleep. They wake up refreshed the next morning. So
Lovely.
Yeah.
Now we talk about self-healing. Let's go into that a little bit of how we can heal ourselves through some of these, what goes on through everyday life. Because we all need to have ways to heal ourselves again, so that we're not going into a bottle of pills and feeling that the only way we can heal ourselves is by taking more medicines that really only hurt us, because our bodies can actually do so much that we don't even realize.
absolutely. When we have a cut, we don't go to the doctor. We put a plaster on, yeah. But what happens? It heals. So the body heals itself. And one of there's a few ways that I do. Reiki is one of the ways. And that is when I'm just the facilitator, right? So the body, or Reiki rather, activates the body's own healing abilities. But if you want to heal, the first thing you've got to do is be accepted of it, be receptive, be open, right? You talk to your cells. Our cells are listening to us every day, all day. That's why affirmations are brilliant, right? They're listening. And if you say to your cells, oh, I'm tired today, cells are like, oh, okay, she's tired, right? Let's go to sleep. Or let's sit on the sofa. Oh, my hip hurts. I can't move. Oh, okay. Hip hurts. Can't move. Right. So your cells are listening. And then they're not saying, are you sure? Are you sure about this? No.
They just accept what you tell them.
Exactly. Which means that we have to become more aware of how we speak to ourselves, what we think, what we say out loud. That is the first step, I would say, to healing. Okay. And also even if you think, oh my God, that's not going to work, try it. Then say it's not going to work. But there are lots of people with testimonials. I have my own testimonial because I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And that came about after I had my child. I mean, it was there before, but it surfaced itself. And it's gone because of the self-healing that I did. And you've got to be patient with yourself, right? No, one thing is not going to heal you, because we are multifaceted beings, which means we need different things at different stages. And then we need it again. Just when you think, okay, right, I've healed myself, boom, something comes along and you're like,
Always. Yeah. And I tell people too, I'm like, if the process of maybe getting sick took 10 years or whatever, because I look back I had arthritis in my hip, still have a little bit, but the buildup was 10 years. It's not going to be just one night of thinking, okay, it's gone. You have to really work on yourself, and come to terms with things. And a lot of times that trauma that's in our hip causing it is something you haven't released yet, that you're holding in, that's keeping it stuck there.
Yes.
So healing has to do with trauma. Get rid of the trauma if you can, and then you're really on your journey of healing.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
what you're saying, the self-talk is probably one of the most important aspects, because what we say to ourselves is what we transition into ourselves. So if we can't do it, we're talking about how sick we're going to be. then that's exactly what's going to end up happening.
Yeah.
If we learn that we can start talking to ourselves in a way of saying, I'm going to make it through, I'm feeling better each day, and do those type of affirmations to yourself every day, I'm feeling better and better, you begin to feel better and better.
Yeah.
And, like we have to realize the same, like of the weight gains, people don't gain weight 10 pounds at a time. It takes time to gain those 10 pounds. And it's going to take time to release those 10 pounds at the same time, too. So,
Absolutely.
we're in a world where, it's just like the phone. Somebody sends you a text and you want instant reply, instant gratification. It's a world of instant. But it isn't a world of instant, and we have to accept that and work it accordingly. Because I think our body, when we come to understanding, and just like you're saying, to release the acceptance and to stop worrying about if it's going to work, if it's not going to work, and just believe that it's going to work. It's really crazy how it does work.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And they always say how kind, if there's one person to be kind to, it's yourself.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
special. Talk very kind to yourself because you're listening.
Yeah. You talk to yourself the most.
Mhm.
Well, and you have to live with you for the rest of your life.
I
People
know.
will come and go, but you will be there
I
forever.
am there, whatever. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm with you. And one of the things I wanted to say, Glenda, when you were talking about sick and wellness are on different frequencies,
Yeah.
right? So sick frequency will attract more sick frequency if we believe in the law of attraction. Well, it's a law, right? It's not a belief. It is just what it is, how the world works. And then if you on the wellness frequency, you're going to attract more wellness. So it's like having a coin, and we live in a world of polarity. So you're going to look at the head of the coin, or you're going to look at the tail of the coin. It's up to you. Everything is a choice at the end of the day. And I think we have come to this place where we are, we fall into victim mentality, that it's being done to us. But in my life, and I've been through a lot of challenges, and different challenges in different areas. If there's one thing I've learned that brought me to today, is that life is working for me and life is working through me. Source energy can only experience itself through us, through this human form. So when you think that life, even sick is there to get your attention, to say, hey, something's not working. You need to look here. Okay.
Pay
So
attention.
I would say be grateful for sick. Be grateful. It's a blessing. It's telling you, right? Because that's the only time we'll get off the couch and go to the doctor, right? When we are sick. So
True.
I
It's,
know.
I believe it's the same thing. The universe tells us, the same thing. If something happens and you're having to stop, maybe you're just been going too much and your body is just saying, I need some rest. I need to slow down. And and there's many of us, me included, that don't know how to stop at times. And unfortunately, I've had my own times where I've been forced to stop. And instead of that, it's just like, when something goes wrong in your life, this is a time when it's your learning time. Your body is telling you, or something happens. You can learn from those failures, from those knockdowns, and just take a note and understand that there's something greater than you that's trying to teach you something.
yeah,
Mhm.
I love that. That's beautiful.
It is. And I think that's why silence is so important. Silence is so effective in just, people are taught to that you have to keep talking all the time. But if you just sit in your silence, that really can be a superpower for you. And listen and absorb and just let your body talk to you. It will tell you what's going on. It will guide you to what's going on. It will guide you how to heal it. If you just, you will get those downloads. And those are just directions from higher self. And higher self doesn't fail you. It's not like the human that can fail you. You talk about laws. And that's just one of them. And I've used that. I depend on my higher self and universe and God and whoever you want, but it's like they know way more than me. And I have really learned to heed their knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah. Intuition as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important.
Synchronicities, even, everything's around you working for you if you let it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So do you teach children about synchronicities, about things like this?
I have taught children about their emotions. I've taught children to become aware of their emotions. I have taught children to become more empowered so that they can support themselves. I haven't really taught synchronicities. That is a very good question. See, now you're making me want to go back to education, but no, I'm not going back.
Should have done that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, these little people are just sponges, right?
Yes.
They can learn so much, and I just always think of it because I looked at when my kids were little, that they have so much that they can teach and see things in a different way because they don't have all this stuff in them, right? They don't
Yeah.
have these limited beliefs. They don't have things telling them they can't do it unless you're the type of parent that's telling your kid that they can't do it. But like the whole thing is as a child, when they're young, they're like a sponge that has not been filled with all this, excuse me, but shit, right?
Yeah.
They at least can feel different things. They see things very differently. I love it how like we talk about from time to time who your teachers are. Well, for me, for many years, has always been the kids that have taught me, and
Mm-hmm.
one of my greatest teachers have been my brothers because they're children in their own way, and they have taught me about strength and patience and understanding and incredible lessons that wouldn't have come from anyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very
Children are
true.
more connected to themselves. They are more connected to source. And you're right. It's because they don't have these layers of limiting beliefs. So it's easier for them to understand, and it's easier for them to teach us.
Yeah. And if you can catch them before the conditioning starts, the barrage of what you can't do versus what you can and what you should do. And it's like you said, they're just little sponges, Glenda. They're just, and it made me think I've got a little niece that kind of has a little temper and she's not quite 5 yet. And I'm like, you know what? When I go back out there, I'm going to teach her to tap.
She will
Take
absolutely just swallow that up.
Yeah. And I mean, and she's the type that like, she would go around doing it and teach the rest of the class. She's that leader type. But that's going to be fun. I'm going to remember that and do that, Annie. I'm going to teach her that.
But that's the great thing about this, because even the children that I've taught, I've never said to them, go and teach someone else, because they felt it worked for themselves. They saw how it worked for them. They decided, I'm going to teach you. Oh, mommy's stressed out about something. Dad's stressed out about something. I'm going to teach you. Oh, my brother is stressed out about something. I'm going to teach you.
You're so much smarter.
They're so much smarter. And it's that ripple effect. That's what I love. It's the ripple effect, because you think you're only having that effect on one life, but that one life then turns into 2 lives, into 3 lives. And it's,
Yes.
and together we can heal ourselves in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
I love that.
I do too. I do too.
Well, Annie, I hate to say it, we're coming to the end of an hour now. It's always goes too fast when we're having a great time and enjoying it, I know. But for people that have been watching us, can you give us, like some tips of what they can bring into their lives to give some peace, some harmony, or their children of something, maybe even an outlook that will help other people to move forward?
Well, my first tip would be start tapping. Even if you don't feel stressed, tap, because what that does is that anything that you are unaware of in the body will be released, and that's how you start to build your resilience. And if I was to take something out of my book, the previous book, which is notice, become aware, and trust, that's the first part of the Natty Lala, right? And that's, so notice how you're feeling, become more aware, self-aware, and acknowledge the emotions and the feelings that you have. You are an emotional being, and that's okay. And, we've been told, don't get angry, don't get this, don't get that. What are you anxious about? No, you can be anxious. Your emotions are there to power you, right? You just need to understand where it's coming from, why it's happening to you, and then tap it out, as I say to the kids, or even to my clients, tap it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then trust. The next letter is T, which is trust. Trust that the universe, that everything is working for you. You cannot be excluded from this universe. If you live here and you're a human being, or any kind of being, any kind of life, you are not excluded, you are included.
Yes.
Right? So life is working through you.
It's the only party everyone's invited to, right? You're here, you are invited.
I love that. Thank you so very much. And for anybody who's looking to get in touch with Annie, I just want to remind you that below our videos is a link, which is a way that you can touch base with Annie and speak to her directly. And Nicole Harvick, can you give us what you're thinking about how today's gone?
One of the things that Annie brought up that I think is the most important is about healing yourself. And I had a conversation with a friend last week, and she was having some issues, and she went to a healer, and he told her he could cure her. And I told her, I said, if anyone tells you that, please run next time, because no one has the ability to heal you but yourself. I'm your guide, I'm your facilitator, but you are doing the work. There's not, even our doctors can't heal us. We're masked with pills, or, you are so powerful. Your mind is so powerful. You are a creator, you are a healer, and it just, period, at the end of the sentence, it is all about you. It is all in your hands, and it's amazing. So just remember that you are the healer.
Beautiful. Annie, thank you for coming today, and we enjoyed having you on Let's Get Real. You're a beautiful soul. I thank you for what you do for our beautiful children out there. It's something that there's not enough kudos that goes out for all these teachers that put out their energy and give out of themselves, because that's who our world needs to be catered towards. And for all of you that are watching, thank you very much for joining us today. I want to remind you one thing. It all starts and ends with you. So start learning to love yourself, to trust yourself, and to accept yourself. There's only one of you, and that's all that really matters. It's all about loving you. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember to love us, share us, and most importantly, I hope you've learned a little bit from us. Thank you. Have a great day.